Thanks everyone for taking time to join this call. So I'm sure you'll have like a lot of insights during this session. And if you have any questions, like when I walk through all of these, please do raise your hands, and we could always pause and move ahead. So today we'll be discussing about how you could build an intelligent chat experience. So nowadays, like with all these OpenAI, I mean, you've been like hearing this buzzword everywhere. So it is definitely not new anymore. But the industry is changing, right? The search experience is changing. So the way we search for things is also changing. So previously, like I used to go to Bing.com or Google.com, right? And then I would just try to do the keyword search, but I'm not doing that anymore, right? Like so I just go to that Google Converse or the Bing chat, and then I'm just like typing in my questions so that so a lot of times like I'm seeing that like it is saving me a lot of effort. So if I'm just doing a keyword search, I have to like go into all of these links, at least the top five, and then I have to understand like what all of these links are like saying to me, and then I have to like interpret from that. But now Bing is doing that job for me, right? So the same thing is getting extended to the web experience as well. Some of the sites have started to include this conversational search. So in sitecore.com itself, we have the Q&A already embedded right now. But certain other sites have these chatbot type of integrations embedded as well, right? So both of them are like good use cases, which gives us an indication that the search experience is changing, right? And I'm Subbu. I'm working as a senior director of technology at Altido. I lead the Sitecore Center of Excellence within Altido. I'm a Sitecore technology MVP, and I like building modules. I've built modules for the Teams app. I have built modules like Teams app and also the Chrome extension. And even in this presentation, like I'll be showing one of the quick modules. I mean, it's not a big module, like it's just a small SPE module. So I like SPE or the Sitecore Connect, all of you others like who are on the call. And here in this call, I'll be covering why AI-driven chatbots are important, and I'll be covering what is OpenAI, and then what is Azure OpenAI, how it's different from OpenAI, and how you could build a chat experience. And there are like three different approaches that we will be discussing. So how the design looks like for those approaches, and a quick demo of those approaches as well. So the AI-driven chatbots, like they are redefining the search experience, as I mentioned earlier. And the reason is it has like a lot of benefits. The first one is high quality responses. So you are saving a lot of time for your customer, right? If you have a chatbot integrated in your site, or if you have a search experience, a conversational search experience, so then you are saving a lot of effort for the customer. Like even in your website, if you think about the example that I gave in the beginning, like where you don't have to like go into multiple links within the Bing search or the Google search and try to like comprehend by yourself, right? So the same thing can be applied to your website as well. So you don't have to like go to multiple links, and even this specific the example that I've got, even you can find you'll be like seeing that it goes into like two different links, and then like it comprehends and gives the message for the question what you are looking for, and it will give the references of those. So you'll get high quality responses, and which saves you a lot of effort. And the other thing is multi-language support. So you don't have to spend like if, for instance, if you have a customer from Texas like who speaks Spanish fluently, like you can ask the question in Spanish, and then this AI chatbot understands, kind of like translates that into English, and it searches those documents and response back in Spanish as well, right? So you don't have to spend a lot of time or effort in like enabling search, testing them in multiple languages, right? So that is another good use case, and it helps with faster retrieval of data and personalized interaction as well. So there will be multiple types of customers in coming to the website, someone like who is new to the website and somebody who might have purchased the product already, right? And you don't have to like explain things from the scratch for that person again, right? So you have to you can just like go straight into the point. Like you could say you have bought something like this already, and this goes well with that. Like those type of personalized interaction is feasible with the AI-driven chatbots, because primarily the AI-driven chatbots, like they understand the natural language processing, right? So that's the primary benefit of this AI-driven chatbot. And the user sentiment analysis, if it's a customer experience bot, it can basically understand the tone of the customer, like whatever they are typing in, and if something is not right, like it would just like try to calm them down or and make the appropriate responses based on that. And it's cost efficient. So the per request, if you're using GPT-4, the cost is just 1 cent per request, right? Like, which is pretty cheap. And if you're even going with GPT 3.5, if it is going to solve the need that you have, like it is much more cheaper as well. And the other thing is it helps us to gather a lot of business insights as well. So if you have the plain search, and if you want to like get more insights on like what people are looking for, then you have to have a manual person like who goes into all of those search history, and he has to like basically kind of identify like what people are looking for, what's happening, like what is their sentiments, like all of these, right? But these AI-driven chatbots, like that can summarize that for you. Like it can give us insights on like you could improve your focus on this specific product, or it could just like give us some new tips as well. Like you could just like expand your business into this specific area or something based on whatever like it hears from the customers. Like it can be kind of like understood as a feedback generation tool as well. So there are a lot of benefits with the AI-driven chatbots, and if it's set up right, like it can drive a lot of business for the customers. And introduction to OpenAI. So we all know OpenAI is an organization like which was the term was coined because like so initially they wanted to give AI for free. They coined this term OpenAI, but then later Microsoft bought it, and then they enhanced the product for sure. But then it came up with some kind of like cost tax in it. So we have to like it's a paid product, but the cost is very cheap. Like as I said, like it's 1 cent per request, so it's cheap. And they developed several advanced AI models, like including the generative pre-trained transformer, which means the model is pre-trained, and it can understand the natural language processing, and we can just like go ahead and use the model as it is. And GPT models are of type a large language model. So when I say large language model, like what it does is like it just predicts the next best word. So that's what it does, and it does it in a loop, right? So when I say that, so if you ask a question to ChatGPT, like what is LLM? So then it would start with LLM is, right? So it just predicts the next best token, and it would say like LLM is, and then it would just like go back to the pre-trained data. It has been trained on a vast amount of data, as we know, like billions of pages, right? So based on that, like it would just like come up with the next word, like LLM is the, and then it would just like predict the next best word based on whatever data it was trained on, right? So that's what it does. Like it basically predicts the next word based on the data it was trained on, and it does it in a loop so that it completes a sentence. So that's why if you go to ChatGPT, it doesn't. If you ask a question, it doesn't like give you a response immediately, right? So it just like takes a time. Like it just provides in a generative fashion because as it was like typing that like as it was presenting the response, it was just working in the background like finding the next best word in a loop. That's why like you see that it actually goes in a generative fashion. And the GPT models are pre-trained, as I told, and these GPT 3.5 model, like it consists of 175 billion parameters, and GPT-4 consists of like 176 trillion parameters to predict the relevant and accurate response. So to understand these parameters, we have to take a step back and to understand the concept of what is a neuron, the neural network, like back to the college days, like we might have learned, right? So this is an example of how a neuron will look like, right? An artificial neuron, and here you can see like it has multiple inputs, right? And then it will have an output, and these bias and also the weights that you see. So these are called the parameters, right? So if I want to like give you a real-time example, so if you want to build a calculator like which will tell you like if you could afford a coffee or not, as an example, right? So then the inputs would be like I want a coffee, and the second input would be I have $4, and the third input would be the coffee is $5, right? So if you give these three, then this neuron should automatically calculate and give you the value that you cannot afford a coffee, right? The way it works is like it does that automatically, right? Because it doesn't understand before training. So now we have to train and tune these weights and bias in such a way that it gives the response that we need, right? So it should say no, right? And then if you change the inputs, like if you have instead of saying I have $4, if you change that to like I have $6, then it has to give you the output saying that it's you'll be able to afford the coffee or an S, right? So you have to tweak these weights and bias based on the inputs, and then make the neuron respond in the fashion that you want. So this process is called the pre-training. So it's simple if you have to do this for one neuron, right? But the complexity comes when you have to like do this for thousands of neurons or billions of neurons, right? And only when the efficiency comes, right? Like only if you're able to like train those much amount of neurons, like the efficiency comes. So this is what GPT has done. So they have multiple layers, this input layer, and you can see all of these hidden layers, and then the output layer as well, right? So the request that we send, right? Like, so if you ask like, what is LLM in the chat GPT? So it actually goes through this neural network, and it would process all of these, all of the response, and then like it would just respond token by token. So that's how it basically works. And the other benefit of this OpenAI is it has REST API support, right? Which means like it doesn't work standalone. Like you could just like integrate it with your application, right? So when the REST API comes, like you have that flexibility. And these OpenAI models can also be fine-tuned for specific tasks, right? So fine-tuning is one of the process which with which like you can kind of like customize the model itself, right? So these are pre-trained model, like it is trained on like billions of data, right? And so if you want to like want it to like respond in a different way, like for instance, if your brand, if your customer has a different type of need, like if they want to uh, kind of like want the response to be in a different type of tone or something, then you have to like do a fine tuning, right? Some of these tasks can also be done by prompt engineering. So by providing the context, like a lot of details in the prompt itself, like you will be able to achieve what you're looking for. That process is called prompt engineering. But in certain cases, like if you're not able to achieve the thing, then you have to like go with fine tuning. Like when you want a specific type of tone, like if you want the OpenAI to respond in a different way, then you have to create a custom model, which comes with this fine tuning process where you will upload your data sets. Like you will put in a question and you will put in a response and say, so if somebody asks this question, you have to follow this specific type of approach to respond. So if you just feed that data, then you can create your custom model and do that. So one challenge with this custom model is it's expensive, right? So it would take minimum of $5,000 just to host that model itself per month, right? So which is expensive, but most of the cases you may not need it. And ChatGPT is a specific implementation of GPT models, right? So these GPT models, like if you want to like sell it to the market, like they have to come up with a specific application of it. So that's how ChatGPT got evolved. And moving to the OpenAI concept, the first one is prompt. A prompt consists of instruction, context, input data, and output indicator. The instruction is something like, so for instance, like if you're preparing a presentation and if you want the ChatGPT to come up with some kind of bullet points, let's say, so then you will say like, can you summarize this for me? So that would be the instruction, right? And the context is like you have to just add some more context so that it will be able to like come up with the appropriate response. In this specific example, context is I'm working on a presentation, right? So that it will kind of like imagine how a presentation will look like, and it will take your instruction and come up with the summarization. And whatever your input are, like whatever input that you are feeding. So if you're just like getting an article, if you're pasting it in the chat GPT, and if you want that the ChatGPT to summarize that, then that input is called the input data. And the output indicator is basically the bullet points, right? Like, so if you want to say like, give me some 10 bullet points or something, right? So that would be the output indicator. So all of these comprises the prompt itself. And the completion is basically the response, whatever the response you get from the ChatGPT and tokens. So this is an important concept. So ChatGPT doesn't understand the English by itself, right? I mean, it is, so if you just like type in, like it seems like it understands English, but it doesn't understand English. So whatever you're typing, like it just converts that into numeric embedding format, right? Embedding means like, it's basically vectors. I'll show you how that will look like in the demo itself. So it converts that into vectors, into multi-dimensional vectors, basically. So not two-dimensional or three-dimensional, like how we have used in the colleges, right? So it includes multi-dimensional vectors. And it kind of like, so based on that, it understands the meaning of a specific word in the context of the whole sentence, right? As an example, if you take a word right, so the right has two meanings, right? So one is opposite of left, and the other one is it's basically you can say like if it's correct or wrong, right? So that's it's opposite of wrong as well. And similarly, like if you take a word like fall, so it represents a season, like fall season, or it can say something like if somebody has fallen or something, right? So there are multiple meanings for each and every word that we see in English, right? So in order to like understand the meaning of that specific word, so you have to like fit it within the context, right? The entire sentence. So that's what ChatGPT does. Like it specifically breaks down that the specific sentence into multiple tokens, and it converts that into the numeric, into embedding format, and then when you type in a query, right, it's again converted into the embedding so that it would just try to match those numbers and see like if that falls closer to each other, and then it would just give a response based on that. Okay, so that this process is called tokenization, and I also covered the embedding concept as well. Okay. And the next one is prompt engineering. So this, as I mentioned before, like, so if you want to like engineer your prompt, like add more context, so that process is called prompt engineering. And plugins is another feature from ChatGPT. So with ChatGPT, like as it is, like you cannot use it for your application, right? Because it was trained only till 2021. And the newest version, which they released a couple of days back, there was a Dev Day conference during which they announced the new model, GPT-4 Turbo, which is trained till April 2023, right? So, but still, like, I mean, if you're using your own application, like you need real-time data and it has to look like an authentic source, like from your website, right? So this is not possible with the ChatGPT. So that's why they created this concept of plugins. So where you could create your own plugin for your specific website. And this is available for the ChatGPT Plus users. So they can go and like there's a plugin like Expedia, so they can go to that plugin and people can actually search for the flight bookings, and it just like gets the real-time information, translates that, and then it would just like respond back to your query as well because it understands the natural language processing, right? Um, and the fine tuning. So fine tuning we all already discussed in the previous slide as well. So it's basically training a model in your specific context. Like if the existing model as it is not working for you, and if you wanted to like respond in a different manner, then you can fine tune that. Okay. Any questions so far, team, before I move on to the next slide? Yes, sounds good. And yeah, I'll explain how the OpenAI models work. So if somebody is putting in an user input, right, which is a prompt in the ChatGPT, so it would get tokenized, right? You can, so it's basically getting like if you have a word like chunk, so it can be tokenized into CHU will be like one token, NK will be another token, S will be another token, right? So it will be tokenized, and then it will be converted into word embeddings format, like which as I told, it's a vector in a numeric format in a multi-dimensional place, right? Like, so that's how it converts that. And then that would get fed into the neural network, like which we saw in the first slide. And the neural network like kind of like predicts the next best word, right? It does the token prediction and then it decodes and sends the response, right? And it does it in iterative manner. Like as you can see, the neural network, like it does the token prediction and then it sends the response and then it just does this like over and over again, and then till the sentence is complete or the paragraph is complete, right? Then here are the challenges with the GPT. So the GPT models are powerful, like we know, but there are some challenges with the extensibility, right? So we want to make it work for our own application, right? So that extensibility is not available out of the box with GPT model till GPT-4, right? But a couple of days back, they announced the GPT-4 Turbo, which is capable of doing that, like on which like you could input your own data, your own files, and then make it respond based on whatever it has learned from that, right? So the GPT models are powerful in one way that it can does the natural language processing, but the extensibility is hard, right? So you need to do a ChatGPT plugins, but that won't work with API. So that will work only within the ChatGPT space, but you want to embed the chatbot into your website, right? So that extensibility was hard. With the GPT-4 Turbo, like which was announced a couple of days back, which it's in beta version, with that, this specific problem will go away, right? But there will be other two problems that would remain, like which is the usability and reliability, right? Like it doesn't have like a super good user interface like how we have in Azure, right? So we all are used to like Azure way of working, right? So we have those security controls, like multiple aspects, like it gives us a lot of flexibility, right? Like all of these are not available with OpenAI because it's just a product, right? It's not like powerful as the cloud, right? And the reliability is not that great with the OpenAI API. Like it has been experiencing multiple outages, like at least 1 to 2 outages per month historically, right? So even I think yesterday, like I was preparing the demo and I was noticed an outage as well. So it's not very reliable, not usable, and not extensible up to some extent. So these are the challenges. And in order to overcome this, like we have to use Azure OpenAI, right? For enterprise applications, for production deployments, like we need something which is reliable and extensible, right? So Azure OpenAI service, they came up with a new concept called bring your own data. So this was announced around July, I believe. So this was a new feature. So it's based on retrieval augmented generation. So I'll cover what is retrieval augmented generation in the next slide. So they released this new feature with which like you could bring your own data, and then you could get the natural language processing capability of the GPT. And combining both of them, you could create the chatbot and put it on your website, right? And not only the chatbot, right? Like since this presentation is more about chatbot, I'm just using that, but you could use it for like multiple purposes. And the next one is security, right? So it includes advanced security controls and also the user restrictions, private network connectivity. So a lot of benefits. We know how much it can help us. And also the reliability. So it has 99.9% SLA. So I've been using Azure OpenAI for a while now. Like I haven't seen any outage so far. And the usability perspective, it offers AI Studio and AI Content Safety Studio as well. So which gives us a good experience. Like you could probably like build up all of these pretty fast, right? So you don't have to like develop certain areas. So I will cover those ones. Like you don't have to like develop those specific retrieval augmented generation. Like it comes out of the box itself. And if you want to like do any kind of like content safety measures, like if you're getting some inputs from your users, right? If they're typing in some data and if you want to store that in your database, right? So you definitely need to have those content safety measures as well. So for that, like you could use a content safety studio as well. Okay. And so this is retrieval augmented generation, right? So when a user inputs a question, so we need to go back and so this is how the retrieval augmented generation works. Like we have to go and query the business data. For this purpose, like we will use Azure Cognitive Search, like because it has that embedding the vector field out of the box support, right? So that works better for our case. Like I'll cover that in the demo. No, and this cognitive search like comes with multiple data sources. Like we can inject databases, files, different even the content like through APIs. Like we can inject. So when the user asks for a question, right? Like we can go back, query the business data. Like we basically need to convert that into embeddings, and then with that embeddings, like we can go to uh, the Azure Cognitive Search, compare with those embeddings, like which one is closely matching, and then pick up those documents and build a prompt with those search results and the user question, and send it to the query model of Azure OpenAI, right? So we can send this to the GPT model. So along with the question and as well as the results, right? And then it would easily like frame up the response, and we can just send it back to the user. So this is basically the retrieval augmented generation. So now we can move on to how we could build a chat experience. The first approach is like if you're using XM Cloud and Sitecore Search, the work is pretty simple, right? Because whatever I have shown you, like whatever I have explained you, like all of these like comes inbuilt with the Sitecore Search. It's powered by Nolly, the Sitecore's partner, and you could just like work with them to get that enabled on your specific Sitecore Search instance, and you could get going. So when a content author publishes the request, it goes to XM Cloud, index content, and then if you have any data, right, you could either directly index that with Sitecore Search because it has those capabilities. But if you want to like parse, or like if you want like do any advanced work, like then you can actually go with the Sitecore Connect as well. You could feed it to Sitecore Connect and then pass it to Sitecore Search. And once it is done, like it basically has your data, and it also helps us to, like, it has those GPT model, all of the support. And when you create a chatbot in your website, like you could just like send the prompt from the user and get the completion. And if you want to do any kind of customization, you could do as well. Okay. So this works with XMC with Sitecore Search, or monolith solutions with XP plus Sitecore Search. And for customers like who want low to no maintenance, like quicker setup, like for all of these, like this works really well. Yeah. And the next approach is Azure OpenAI. So here, like you will get exposure to like all of these features, like which I was explaining previously, right? So this because like you will be dealing directly with Azure OpenAI, and all of these resources will be part of your resource group itself. So here, I'll probably go step by step. The first one is when the content authors publish a request. So from the site code, you have to generate the embeddings, okay? And then you have to push it to the embedding. You have to get that from the embedding model, right? So this embedding model is hosted within the Azure OpenAI itself. And once the content is generated, along with the content and the embeddings, you have to push that into the cognitive search, index that, and store those documents, right? And if you have any specific files that you want to push, like you could push it to Blob. And from the Blob, you can, that is a system that Azure has, like it automatically, like, so from the AI Studio, like if you just ask it to like spin up this specific Azure OpenAI instance, like it would automatically like create the cognitive search blob and build up all of those connections and models and everything for you. And it even comes with ChatGPT. So basically, whatever you see within this box comes out of the box with with the Azure OpenAI itself. From the AI Studio, when you build it up, it gets created automatically, and you have the flexibility to go and change any parameter. Okay. And so here, as we have seen, like so you will be able to push the content from here, and then you will be able to push the data from here. And one thing to note here is when you push the data, there is a limitation in the embedding model, like it cannot accept more than 2048 tokens per request, right? So you have to break the PDF or Word document into multiple documents, right? And then you have to basically create chunks, and then that has to be converted into those embeddings, right? So because of that character limitation that we have got, and you don't have to do this as well. Like this comes out of the box with that blob and cognitive search integration, and it is just controlled by the Azure AI Studio. And if you want to like change any parameter, you can just go ahead and change it. Okay. So now this cognitive search has all the inputs from the data and also from the blob storage, right? And in some cases, like you might already be using an existing blob storage for your media assets, right? So you could just like plug in that blob storage as well. You don't have to create one new and migrate and all. So you'll have like all of the media and content in this way. And now when the user like asks a query, so it goes to the chat web app. And so the chat web app that comes out of the box is based on Python and LangChain. And if you want to like, if you're like more of a C# developer, like you could build your own with semantic kernel, right? And then you can create your own app. But at the basic level, what the web app does is like it gets the query, and then it passes the query to the cognitive search after generating those embeddings, and then it finds the relative results. And once it finds all the relevant results, like it prepares the grounding. Grounding means it's a process like where you will pick up like only the relevant documents, right? So instead of sharing the entire cognitive search to Azure OpenAI, it just like finds whatever is the closest matching document, right? And then it prepares the grounding, and it would send it as a prompt to the Azure OpenAI, right? And once we have the response, that would be sent back to the user. The other thing that to note here is like when you're building a conversational bot, we have to include the history as well, right? So not just the question that the user asked, but you have to like include the history as well, because the user might be asking a follow-up question, right? But thankfully, like this is also covered in the Azure AI Studio itself. Like whatever chat web app it creates, it takes care of that. Like it basically includes those questions as well, the previous questions as well, so that the OpenAI will be understanding the intent of the user, and it will give the relevant response as well. Okay. And this works for composable solutions with the XM Cloud and without Sitecore Search, right? And monolith solutions with XP. And wherever a fine tuning is needed, or if you want like more flexibility around the content filters, if you want to do more customizations, extensive personalization, if you want to like customize this web app, create your own web app, so in those cases this would work better. And if you want additional database data sources support, like that will be introduced by Microsoft soon. And there is plugin support as well, which is coming soon, like so where those translators, like all of these will be coming soon with the Azure AI Studio itself. And you could just like integrate those plugins and build the experience soon. And in order to make things easier, I've created a module here, so which I mentioned before in the beginning of the call. Like this is a module less than SPE module, which basically generates the embeddings. Like whenever a content author publishes the content, like it gathers those fields, those templates, and then it would just send it to the Azure OpenAI, generates the embeddings, and then it pushes the content into cognitive search. Okay. So these are the features of the module. It's a GitHub module. It's available. Like you could just go and clone the repository and make it work for you as well. So this module actually indexes the published content, and you could select templates, and the fields that has to be indexed, and it generates embeddings, and it also sanitizes content, because in some cases like we'll have the rich text field, like which includes p tags or break tags, right? Like so we don't want that to be included in those embeddings, right? So we have to like strip those ones off so we can sanitize the content. And this also adds the page URL as the unique identifier, so that like you will be able to use this in the citation. And also it works with individual and multiple bulk publish items as well. Like when you publish as sub items, like it works as well. And it also executes indexing as a post publish job, so you don't have to like wait for this to be complete. And also it follows the security best practices, like role-based access control, like all of these. So you don't have to, so you'll still have to like do some kind of like security work, but on the Azure OpenAI side, but still, I mean, like from the module perspective, like you may be able to like use it as it is. So we can move on to the demo. Okay. So yeah, this is my instance. So yeah, I'll quickly show you the module. So it includes the publish and the event handler, and it includes the functions as well. Like you could go ahead and edit that, and it includes the settings, like where you could see these templates, the fields, and I'll go back and change all of these token settings. Like so, I'm just like showing you these fields, but one thing I wanted to highlight is like this is just for demo purpose. Like if you want to like take this module, like install it in your environment, like you could do it. It's not recommended to like store any of the secrets in the Sitecore, because Sitecore is not intended for that. So you have to like move it to the key vault or any of your other established solution for maintaining the secrets, right? But if you want to test this in a local environment, like you could just like go ahead and like use it as it is. Right? Okay. And so what I'll do is, so I'll probably publish some of the items, and then I'll show you how it works. Like here, so I'm just using the Lighthouse content as it is. So whatever you can see here, these kitchen appliances, like, so I'll be using like all of these content. And so right now I don't have any data in the search service, and I don't have any files in the blob as well. So if I just like go and like in this question, so it says like it doesn't have any information on the data that it has. And then so I do have like another PDF which is a Sitecore e-learning PDF. Like so it includes like all the e-learning modules from Sitecore. So it has a different format, as you can see. It's in a table format, like but OpenAI understands these ones as well. So right now it says like it doesn't have these data. So I'm just publishing this right now.
So once it is published, so yeah, you can see here like all of these, all of the content that we saw in the site code. So those have got indexed. So it includes the file path, title, the URL, and also the content vector. So this was the embedding which I was referring to in my previous slides. So as you can see, it includes multiple dimensions, right? So I think it has about like 200, 300 dimensions here, right? Uh, and only with this, like the retrieval augmented generation approach works, like because when we input a question, right? So it has to like convert it into embeddings and then like find which document has the closest match, right? So it works based on this match, and then once it gets the relevant documents, it is getting sent into the OpenAI, and it would be able to like respond for the user's question based on the documents that you're sending as a ground. And here, let me upload the other document. So this is that e-learning doc, and so now if I go back and yeah, let me also run the indexer. So the indexer will trigger only at only within like only after 5 minutes, right? We don't have to like wait for that. So I'll just like trigger this indexer right now, and then so this is basically the first one. The first indexer uh, kind of like breaks the PDF into multiple documents, right? And then it stores those documents into the blob storage, into another blob storage container that we have, and so here you can see like it has process one. So now if I go to this chunking one, then it actually goes and indexes those ones. Like as you can see, like it has indexed four documents. So which means our whatever file you see, like it has now like broken down into four documents. And so now if I go in and type this question here, so it responds back with the answer, right? So it is not the same as like what we saw in the specific site or item. Like it is just like a summary based on like whatever question we have asked for. So this is a good benefit, right? Like so we don't want our customers to read the entire article. Like instead, if they have a specific question, they could just like read the specific portion of the article from the chatbot, right? So this saves a lot of time for them. And also we can fine tune it to like include the responses that we need, that we want the customer to see as well. And if I now like put in the other question here, so it will now like go and get the PDF, and it just like summarizes based on whatever it has learned, right? So as you can see, like it was in a different format, but OpenAI was able to understand that. And it includes the references as well. So right now it includes the broken down references because there are like four chunks if you remember, right? So it basically like breaks it down and anything, but I think like we can just fine tune these ones to include the right. Sure. So before we move on to the next approach, like do you guys have any questions here?
Hi, Subodh. This is Abhilash. I have a question. So for the module you built, right? I'm just curious, like, what
Mm.
under the hood, what did you make use of? Like, the Azure search crawler, or because
Mm.
when you're sending the data, like once you publish, looks like the data is being pushed into the indexes, like the index is being
Yeah, yeah,
used. So,
yeah.
is it like Azure search crawler? And if yes, what kind of services did you make use of, like the text analytics, text analyzer, things like that?
Yeah, it's basically two things. So let me show you this slide here. So the first one is it generates the embeddings, like it makes a request to the Azure OpenAI, gets those embeddings, and once those embeddings are there, like it would then push the content into the cognitive search using those cognitive search APIs.
So to build those embeddings, like did you have to call a particular endpoint, or?
Yeah, that is an endpoint. Like it is. So so it's the so when you I'll probably show you the other part that would make you so so this is the Azure OpenAI Studio, right? So from where like we could actually like add a data source, like we could just so it's a step-by-step process. Like when you start, like it would like show you like what search, it will ask you to create a search service, blob, all of these, and then it would automatically link all of these here.
Yep.
And the first step would be to create the Azure OpenAI. Like even before you navigate to this Azure AI Studio, like you will have to create an OpenAI service within the Azure portal itself. When you create that OpenAI, it would give you those endpoints. Okay? So if I show you these settings here, you might be able to understand that. So this is the OpenAI resource name that I have, and then it is the embedding model, and so these embedding model is from deployments. Yeah. So I'm using two different models. One is the embedding model, which gives us that embedding values for the input content that we pass, and then the GPT 3.5 model, like which gives us those responses. So there are two models we have, and here we don't have to input the other GPT 3.5 because the GPT 3.5 is used by the chat web app, and this embedding model will be used by this in our case, like just to generate the
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
And you could see these. So yeah, so this is basically. So yeah, this is basically the code here. So I'm just like preparing the embedding API URL here. So this is a specific endpoint. So the resource name .openai.azure.com/openai/deployments, and then the embedding model name, and then /embeddings. So that is an
Okay.
API.
There is a slash. Okay, embedding center.
Yeah.
Okay. Explains. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, so this is the next approach, like which I was mentioning earlier. So it was just announced 2 days back, and so I don't want to like present something like which is outdated in the presentation, right? So I spent yesterday like kind of like reviewing like how this works, and then like I built this specific slide. Um, so here what happens is, right, like so if you remember the previous slide where we have the Azure OpenAI, so you'll have all the flexibility. You can control the cognitive services block and all, right? So if you want to control all of those, like you could just still go ahead with that approach. But if you don't want like any type of control around that, then you could directly use the OpenAI, right? But still, it has those other issues, the usability and the security, reliability issues, like I mentioned earlier. And if you want to overcome that, like you may need to wait for a little more time. So Azure OpenAI like might incorporate all of the OpenAI models soon as well, right? So they Microsoft and OpenAI are partners, right? Like so they'll get the model like after some time, right? Like so once they I don't know what is the process, but maybe after a month or two, like we could expect that these two new models like would get added into the Azure OpenAI as well, and we'll be able to like use it with Azure OpenAI. And also like one thing I wanted to highlight is there is no cost difference between using an OpenAI or Azure OpenAI. Like both of them, both of those requires like everything like costs just the same. Like you could compare those prices as well. Okay, so moving on to this approach, like when a content author publishes a content, right, from the site code, we need to push the content as files, like .txt files, like because the OpenAI is not as flexible as the Azure Cognitive Search, so there isn't like any API to inject the content directly, but it just supports the files for now. So you have to convert that into file, and then you have to push that into the OpenAI using the files and assistant API. So the assistant API is a new feature that we use, with which like you could inject that into the OpenAI, and files can be uploaded directly as well. So I'll cover a quick demo of this one after this, and now the OpenAI will have the content from the site code as well as your custom data as well, right? So now the chatbot, whenever there is a query sent, like you have to create your own chatbot, but the chatbot will be very basic, right? So it doesn't have to like maintain any session or tracking or anything. right? Those grounding, all of these principles which we saw in the previous slide. So none of these are required because OpenAI does the threads as well now, right? With this new model, like we could even use this threads approach to just inject pass in the message. Like we don't have to pass the history as well. So OpenAI remembers the context as well. Like if it's a follow-up question asked by the customer, like you don't have to send the history. Like it is automated right now. So the chat web app will just create the thread for the first customer, for the first request from the customer, and then it would just need to pass the messages through those APIs, right? So with the assistant API, we have those options, and then it would need to get the response back, and then it would have to send it back to the HR bot, which is integrated in the website. And here you can see that this diagram is much more simplified. Right? Like you don't have to do the chunking, those grounding as well, and then those embeddings as well. So you don't have to generate those embeddings. Like all of these are done by this specific model itself. So this is the recent improvement, and this works for the target audience of the same type we've seen in the previous slide, but just that it's not 100% playable. So there may be some outages you may need to cut for, except that works. So moving on to the demo side of it. So if you come to this, so this is the playground, right? So what I've done is I've went to the assistant and I've created a new assistant. So you could create an assistant, and creating an assistant is simple. You just have to give an instruction. Like you could say you are a customer service assistant or something. So based on that, based on your instructions, it would start with that way. And here you could select the model, and in this model, only the GPT-4 1106 preview and GPT 3.5 Turbo 116, only these two models supports the retrieval. Right? Retrieval means knowledge retrieval from the external content that you upload. And here you can upload the files directly from there is an upload option. And you can also upload it through the API as I shown. And once you do this, your assistant will be ready. It's as simple as that. And you can just go and put in the question, and the AI chatbot for Sitecore, I mean, this is the name that I've given. It just responds back with the answer, right? I uploaded the same e-learning PDF, and it has just summarized all of that for me. Okay, and this is the assistant. So, and then if you want to do fine tuning, you can do it create a custom model out of it, and then API keys, files, usage. Yeah, so that. Any questions, Steve? All right. Moving to the resources. So this is the GitHub repository. So you could go to the repository, and if you want to clone this for your application, you can clone it. So I've also added detailed instructions, prerequisites there. And this is Azure OpenAI form. Azure OpenAI is available only in the public preview mode. It's not available for all. So you may need to submit a request form in your use case to Microsoft, and they will approve it. Typically, they'll approve it in two days, or can take up to a max 10 days, but they'll respond fast. And Azure OpenAI Fundamentals is another training which I would recommend you guys to go through. If you're new to this OpenAI, so it covers all of these, most of the concepts that we have explained, and it covers much more as well in a detailed manner, going into the details of the prompt engineering, fine-tuning, all of these. And the next one is OpenAI Developer. If you want to develop solutions with Azure OpenAI, you could go through this. And if you want some extensive training, I think there is a LinkedIn course available in around semantic kernel. You go through that. That's it from my side. Any questions?
Yeah, this is Nagendra. Subbu, it was really nice presentation. Looks like a lot of work has been done. I had a question. So you had given option 1, 2, 3. One is Azure plus Sitecore plus Azure OpenAI, and first one was XM Cloud plus Sitecore Search. So when do you suggest, like, what is the second option? Why did we go for second option when we already have in Sitecore search itself?
Yeah. So most of the customers, like, AI is a hot topic, right? Like people want to like move to the AI fast, and most of the customers in the Sitecore world, they are not in it yet. So if they want to like move fast, then that's why that option came up, right? And it might be at different levels in that roadmap. So somebody might be looking to migrate to some cloud soon, and somebody they might have planned only for next year, right? So based on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also, when you said like we can directly upload those PDF docs, and also through XML we can push those content into the search, any of the search indexes and those. So how do you make sure that there is no duplicate? Because we have developed similar thing. Yeah, so a lot of issue comes is like when you're loading the historic data, already historic data, right? Like they would have already had a lot of duplication and those. Have you come across this type of thing? And you can that GPT tell like which are the documents which has a bit of duplicacy and those things like.
So duplicacy in the
Content.
between two content, if there is any duplicate, right?
Yeah.
So GPT handles that by itself, right? I mean, if there is any content duplicate, like it, there are chances, like it may not be exact duplicate. If I understand the question, like you're saying, like in two
So within
items,
the
like
page, you can have a paragraph which is duplicated. Like if there is 4 paragraph, and in another 10th page, you have again 3 paragraph. In that second paragraph has been duplicated or something.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So
it's a bit tricky, but historic data, that is where the challenges come.
Yeah. So OpenAI understands those two things, right? Like so based on the user's input, like whatever matches closest with the user's query, right? So the based on whatever question they are framing, like it would just like try to find the best document, and that would go into the retrieval augmentation model, and it should be like giving only one reference, right? If there is any duplicate, I mean, in case like worst case, if both of them goes in, like I would expect there would be only one reference which would come through, or there are chances like it would go into like two. I think it would depend on like what the user is asking for and how the tendering matching in the overlay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned like for the ChatGPT scenario, you will have to push data into the Azure index, right? Is there any limitation on the amount of data that you can push to Azure index?
Yeah. So it's basically like for those embeddings, like all of these models has those limits, right? Those token limits. So for instance, like when we upload this PDF, like it won't accept the PDF as it is, so we have to like break that down. So we have to like so basically the limit is like in case of like GPT-4 Turbo, it is like 128K2, right? So if you're using GPT-4 Turbo, like so the limit is too high, right? Like we may not be even like reaching that 128K tokens, right? But with the other models, like it is like with GPT 3.5, I think it is 16K, and GPT-4 it is 32K, right? So it depends on the tokens. Like if when the limit exceeds, like we have to like come up with an alternative option. But most of the times, in Sitecore, like we may not have like a bunch of content which would exceed that token limit into the same item.
Correct.
So we should be good.
Okay. Is there whatever the limits that you mentioned? Can you share the link? Where you can find about that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Did you read anything about performance in the sense like, just to maintain that level of performance, how much of data is good, or, if there's anything extra we need to do at the Azure end to take care of it?
Yeah. Yeah, so this specific, I'll share the link as well.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, make a note.
This is, I'm also sharing. And then there is another one related to pricing as well. So I'll share those. I've shared the pricing link as well, like which also includes those two. Yeah, here is those, those links, and then you can see like not all of these models are available in all regions. So this specific link is very helpful. So they keep it updated, right? So sometimes like if whenever they introduce anything new, right? Like so you could just like get the insights from this page, and then it would also cover like which specific region this specific model is available. And when you choose the model, like you can choose the one which is closest to you, and it also includes the features that you're looking for. Okay? So if you want, for example, if you want a fine tuning to be done, right? The fine tuning is available only in these regions, not Central US and Sweden. Okay? So likewise, like whatever things you are trying to achieve, like you find if that specific region supports that activity, and then you have to choose that region as well. Yeah. Any other questions?
It's a lot to take in. I think I have to process some of this too. And yeah, reach out on Slack, you know, when you really start using or creating something with this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I'll be available in Slack, and it took a lot of time for me to understand all of these concepts as well. So I was initially thinking to do this presentation around September, then like after all the office work and all, right? Like so I was not able to. I mean, I was able to spend time, but understanding these concepts, like putting it into action, like building these models, everything. So yeah, that is a lot. Yeah, for sure.
No, yeah, the hardest part I always find is, you know, finding that particular use case and making it all come live on Sitecore. That's where pretty much struggle the most. Yeah, rest of the plumbing can be done fairly quick, but yeah, getting it all into action takes time.
Yeah.